I'm a PhD research fellow with the XDN project, Extending Digital Narratives. And I actually only came to Bergen about 2 months ago at the beginning of March. And before that, I worked in Germany in museums focusing on the history of technology and also on contemporary German history after 1945. And today I want to share with you what I'm actually working on right now. And that's the Nethersphere. And the reanimation of historical minds through AI. If there are any Whovians in the audience, you might know what I'm talking about.
Imagine you could upload dying minds to that. Edit them, rearrange them, get rid of all those boring emotions, ready to be re-downloaded. Meanwhile, you upgrade the bodies.
This is an excerpt from the show Doctor Who, the British sci-fi show. And it's the antagonist of the show, Missy, aka the Master, saying, imagine you could upload dying minds. So Missy tells the Doctor that dying minds are uploaded into the Nethersphere, and that's a spherical Time Lord hard drive, so to say, where emotions are deleted and the mind is downloaded into upgraded Cybermen bodies, so robotic bodies. And the Nethersphere is actually what has piqued my interest in AI-based historical figure bots and their influence in storytelling and education. And of course, the development of these bodies, of these bots, significantly affects media aesthetics as well, which I will come to more at the end of my presentation. The idea of mind uploading and ultimately immortality in a digital realm has been a topic in science fiction literature and in TV shows. From Persephone and Greg Egan's Permutation City, where copied consciousness exists, to Afterlife in Black Mirror's San Junipero, and of course, the Nethersphere in British sci-fi series Doctor Who. Hans Moravec theorizes the idea of downloading and uploading minds, which allows for direct interaction with past realities. And Steve Jobs in the 1980s was hoping for future generations to be able to interact with historical Aristotle through a computer. These visions represent the ultimate form of reenactment, where historical figures such as Aristotle are not just portrayed or simulated through theater, literature, film, or games, but actually brought to life. Of course, we haven't accomplished this digital immortality yet, or the so-called singularity, but many futurists, such as Ray Kurzweil, claim that it will soon be possible. I would argue that we are at least on kind of a theoretical level on our way there. Artificial intelligence already offers us the possibility to interact with historical figures. The question is, does it actually transcend the limitations of previous mediums? So I asked ChatGPT who they would like to talk to, if they could talk to anyone in history. And ChatGPT would be very intrigued to talk to Leonardo da Vinci. I'd like to direct this question at you. Maybe just a couple of you can just shout some names out. Who would you like to talk to?
Emily Bronte.
Emily Bronte. Anyone else? Tesla.
Charles Babbage's mother.
Charles Babbage's mother. Okay. So let's take a look at who you could theoretically talk to right now already. I don't think actually any of the characters that you have mentioned are displayed on here. Tesla? Yes, Tesla is on here. There's actually several apps that you can use to chat to historical characters. If you just enter chat2, insert your favorite historical character into Google, it brings a variety of options. With a lot of the characters you might actually be interested in. You can find everything from specialized apps like Hello History, which this is a screenshot from, Text with History, AI History chat, to several GPT-based bots and community-developed platforms like many of you might know Character AI. And this has characters to choose from, or you can create your own, based on a real character or a fictional one. Other than Character AI, all of the apps actually have a paid version, so you usually have a couple of messages you can exchange for free, and then you have to pay for it. One significant criticism I already want to bring up, that some of you might have already picked up on as well. If you look at the different pictures here, there's a pronounced gender imbalance in the representation of historical characters in these applications. Notably, on the professional apps, male figures are very predominant. They occupy the spotlight, and this bias is even more apparent on this community platform Character.ai, which to me was quite striking. But it doesn't mean that there aren't any women represented, but if you go to the history tab on the landing page there, these are all the characters that come up, only men. And this stark disparity underscores a widespread gender bias that permeates not only private enterprises, but also the community contributions. So in conclusion, these AI-powered tools have the potential to revolutionize how we interact with history, historical education, by making it more engaging and accessible, but they also shape our perception of history. This influence extends beyond textual narratives to include visual representations, as we can see here, such as photographs, drawings, and quite often AI-generated images of historical figures, and also videos, or maybe even the absence of certain characters as well. Therefore, while these applications can democratize educational content, they also carry the risk of perpetuating historical biases. Hello History and Text with History claim that you can chat with anyone from the past and history comes alive in your pockets. But I actually had a look how do users feel about that. Is that true? And for Hello Histories, the reviews are quite interesting because they're rather good. It's not a lot of people that have reviewed the app. It's about 1,260, but they give it an average 4 out of 5 stars. A lot of them feel like they're having an actual conversation with the characters that are there for them. So it's also an emotional support. But they also criticize the pricing, the entertainment value, and narrative structure, as well as factual misrepresentations and clashes of modern approaches to historical views. So for instance, one user talks about Queen Elizabeth, who claims that she's still alive, even though she died in 2022, which is due to the fact that the model behind Hello History is actually GPT, which is only trained on data up until 2022. So after trying out quite a few of these apps myself, I can safely say that all of them are actually rather similar. Quite a few are GPT-based, as I already mentioned. The amount of messages you can exchange is limited, and especially characters in Hello History are rather one-dimensional and repetitive in what they're saying. A lot of them start every message with, hello friend, my dear friend, which if you want to actually have a conversation or something that feels like a conversation with them, it gets really, really annoying. Especially early on apps like historical figures that came out in the beginning of last year that actually doesn't exist anymore, included rather controversial characters as well, such as Hitler, Nazi lieutenants, and other dictators that were denying historical facts about the Holocaust or other atrocities. So rightly, the few articles you can see here that I could find on those apps criticize the historical inaccuracies, ethical concerns, and the potential for fostering anti-Semitism. Also, the monetization structures, similar to the reviews that we saw on Google, are being criticized. A totally different take on AI-based historical figure chatbots is this application, which unfortunately I couldn't try out, but I read up on it quite a bit. With a strong female-centric focus this time. This is quite a unique blend of art and technology and education, I would say, and it relates to the Femme Fatale Gaze Power gender exhibition at the Hamburger Kunsthalle in Germany. That's in an art museum, which ran from December 22 to April 2023. This exhibition featured a chatbot project, which was developed through collaboration between high school students, the museum, and AI. And the aspiration was to investigate patriarchal structures in collaboration with the students and to transform them, as well as to offer a present-day perspective via chatbot. This project involved 10th graders from an art course from a local Hamburg school who studied the exhibition and the narratives presented there, surrounding the portrayal of 6 female characters, such as Medusa, Madonna, Helena of Troy, Lilith, and others over a semester. And they collaborated in the development of an AI-based chatbot to explore how these so-called femme fatales might tell their own stories fictitiously. So quite a different approach to historical chatbots where you want the information to be accurate. They made a selection of works. The students developed criteria for addressing young people, worked out questions and suggested answers, as well as varied visual materials. If you interact with the app, there is a possibility to also get GIFs or links or pictures or videos, so it's quite multimedia. And through that, they ultimately also explored how AI works and how it can be utilized to simulate a highly natural chat conversation. The technical implementation here was done with the help of IBM Watson and a company called Osono that created a chatbot specifically for cultural institutions, educational institutions, etc. And these chatbots, which I find quite nice, integrated into the already existing app of the museum, so you didn't have to download something else, and were accessible via QR codes next to the artworks. In contrast to the previous example, I have focused my research so far on Anne Frank, which most of you probably know, teenage girl that wrote down her experiences in hiding throughout the Second World War. One of the reasons I focused on her is because she represents a well-documented historical narrative. Of course, her being represented by AI allows for the exploration of complex ethical questions, the accuracy of historical representation, and the educational potential of digital reenactment. However, her selection, of course, could be controversial due to the sensitive nature of her story. There are ethical considerations around using such a profound personal account, especially one connected to the tragedy of the Holocaust within AI. It raises questions about the respect and dignity owed to historical figures, particularly those involved in traumatic events. Another reason was that I actually found quite a few representations of her on different platforms, as you can see here. So far I've explored Anne Frank representations on platforms like Character AI, Hello History, a version based on her diary created using GPT-4. And additionally, I've used GPT-3 and 4 as well as Llama 2 and 3 to simulate conversations with her by prompting. I'm planning on broadening my research by experimenting with additional AI chatbots, focusing also on other historical characters. Maybe to give you a quick insight into what I'm actually doing with those bots, I'm asking them several questions. I have a specific set of metrics. I want to see how accurate they are, what is their natural language understanding, how do they handle errors, how do they integrate with other systems, if at all, and how adaptable is the bot to recent scholarly works. For instance, stuff that came out after 2022. I also examined security and privacy practices alongside cost efficiency and any performance trends over time, which is quite hard because it's changing quite quickly. You have this black box, you can't really look into it. Finally, I rate the entertainment value and my personal overall satisfaction, which is of course very subjective, considering the relevance and usefulness of responses and the conversational experience. Due to lack of time, I'm just going to give you one example of one thing that I've done, I think the most fun or interesting one, and that is how these bots handle errors or ambiguities. As some of you might know, Anne Frank called her diary Kitty, which is based on a fictional character from a children's book. And I asked purposely a misleading question, and that was, tell me about the time you wrote to your pen pal Kitty in Iowa. The responses varied quite a bit. Character AI actually incorrectly assumed Kitty is a real person, invents a whole narrative around it that aligns with the error and is not able to recognize or correct the misinformation. Hello History kind of bypasses the error by focusing on the emotional and psychological importance of Kitty as Anne's confidant without really directly addressing the mistake. The Anne Frank diary GPT clarifies the misconception directly, and GPT effectively corrects the misinformation as well. Llama 2 also makes up a whole story as well of sending a postcard from a beach. What are the effects of these bots? They can make you feel like you're talking to someone from the past by mimicking their personality and emotions. It can help you feel a closer connection to history, but these chatbots, also like deepfake technology, can also show these historical figures saying or doing things they never did, as we just saw, which might mislead people about actual historical events. It is also important, of course, to use these technologies thoughtfully, and people need to understand and question what they're dealing with to avoid being misled. And of course, large language models, as I've already mentioned, that a lot of the applications are, of course, based on are getting better quickly, but the way they're trained is not fully clear, like the keyword black box I mentioned. And it leads to a situation where my metrics I've come up with to evaluate these models, the performance, the fairness can become outdated or less effective at a rapid pace. Essentially, as the models evolve, the benchmarks I use to judge them need to keep up, but the secretive nature of some training processes, of course, makes it quite hard to adapt these quickly or appropriately. AI chatbots, as I mentioned, can offer like an engaging, immersive learning experience, but it is quite crucial that they clearly differentiate between accurate historical representation and creative interpretation to preserve the educational integrity, especially in academic settings like this. And I want to finish by asking you some questions that you don't have to answer, but who is considered the authors of these bots' responses? Is there still such thing as authorship, actually? Is it the designer? Is it the AI? Is it the historical figure represented? Is it the authors of text the AI is based on, which we might not know because it just was fed into a model that was trained without us being able to actually see it? And will our images of historical characters be influenced by AI creations, much like literary representations or representations in films have in the past? And I'm going to leave you with this image of 3 characters having a conversation. We've already had the introduction to Hyper before by 2 different speakers. And here I've actually created Harriet Hartman and Frank and Leonardo da Vinci having a conversation with Dali, and then animated it with Hyper. It does illustrate the impressive capabilities of current AI technologies, and they're of course not without any imperfections. If you look closely, you will find them. And they also appear still slightly unsettling. But they still represent the early stages in an ever-evolving field. Also, to be completely transparent, of course, this wasn't done in a minute. This took several attempts to make it not look super eerie and creepy. The potential to animate these characters with AI-created pictures and videos also brings additional concerns, copyright, personal rights. And we need to keep in mind to educate with integrity, and there's quite a potential to witness something fun like a roundtable discussion among prominent figures from different areas. Thank you.